Hey everybody, my name is Dennis Carrier and I'm an analytics consultant here at Collectiv. Today we'll be going over what is Power Apps. It'll be an intro into Power Apps to really see the capabilities that Power Apps has and how you can build your own business applications in a low-code, no-code environment. Power Apps is a tool within the Microsoft Power Platform that allows you to build low-code, no-code business applications. So Microsoft Power Apps is more of a platform. It's not just a place where you can go build your applications, although it is used for that. It's really more of a container for many different aspects of business applications and data development. So whether that be Canvas apps or model-driven apps, which we'll get into later. It also contains all of your services and your data connectors. So if you have custom data connectors or you're using one of the 200 data connectors that it already exists, like SharePoint or SQL Server or Azure or Dataverse, any of those things, those all get stored, all of the credentialing gets stored within Power Apps. And it's also a data platform. So I mentioned Dataverse. Dataverse is basically a relational database where you can create entities. It has some out-of-the-box entities that are actually used in Dynamics CRM. So all of those can be reused inside of your application, but you can also extend Dataverse by building your own custom entities or tables to basically deliver that app. Any data that you want to collect inside of your model-driven app or your Canvas app, you can actually build a table in Dataverse to allow you to maintain that. The best part about Dataverse is that it actually has audit capabilities and backup capabilities. So you can see what data changed, and if something changed and you need to revert back and you lose some data, you can always revert back to another backup. So those are just some capabilities within Microsoft Power Apps. We'll actually get into a lot more of these tools further down in the presentation. Next, we'll get into the types of Power Apps. So there are two main types of Power Apps, Canvas applications and model-driven applications. There's also a third type that some people consider part of Power Apps, and that's called Power App Portals. Now, recently Microsoft came out with a new tool called Power Pages, and Power Portals has kind of evolved into Power Pages and is actually its own separate tool now. So for our instance, we will not include that in the type of applications we'll review today. We will focus primarily on Canvas apps and model-driven apps. Canvas apps are really meant to be your mobile-friendly. You can download the Power Apps mobile app on top of your iPhone or Android, and you can actually access it. You can swipe just like you would a normal application. So when you're building these applications, you really want to focus in on how your consumers will be using this application. If they want to access it on their iPad, iPhone, if they're in a distribution center and they need to be accessing this on the go, then Canvas applications will probably be your go-to application type. Model-driven applications, they actually evolved from Dynamics CRM or D365 for sales, like I had mentioned earlier. So all D365 for sales is just a really big model-driven app built on top of Dataverse. And that's the same way you build model-driven applications. So your Dataverse entities or tables are all related together to produce this application feel. So if you're trying to fill out forms, you can embed Power BI reports on top of model-driven applications as well. If you are accessing this application in a desktop style application where you need to manage it that way, then model-driven is going to be your application type of choice. So why is Power Apps important? There are many reasons why companies are starting to develop Power Apps. First, it's low code and no code. So it's really easy to develop these business processes and business apps right on the spot as soon as you need them. Primarily, the way Collectiv works is that we actually help you identify your business processes. We map those out using tools like Visio, talking with different user groups and gathering those requirements, and building those Power Apps. So you can quickly automate all of your business processes as soon as you identify them and how you want those to interact with each other. So basically mapping out step by step what that business process is, and then you can build a Power App to actually automate that process. One of my favorite features and the reason why I use Power Apps frequently is because it really creates a structured and repeatable process. So let's say you're gathering information from different people throughout your organization. you want them to fill out this form in a very structured manner, meaning that they're filling out each field the same way. That's really where the value of Power Apps comes, is that they're coming out, filling out that form in a structured manner with all the fields filled out. You can make them required so they have to actually fill out that form, and then they could submit it and do whatever else down the line that you need to do with that data. But at least it's in kind of a column-based manner where you can manage it that way. Like I mentioned earlier, Power Apps is a low-code, no-code application development tool. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you won't type any code to build your applications, because there is a functional language behind Canvas apps and model-driven apps. But for the most part, it's really just a drag and drop interface. So you can build these out-of-the-box applications with just drag and drop. If you need to add any extended capabilities, then you can use the language called PowerFX. Now, Canvas applications really rely heavily on this functional language, whereas model-driven apps, you have a lot of the drag and drop interface. Model-driven applications do use PowerFX, but it's really only to build your custom buttons inside of the ribbon inside of your application. So you can build custom functionality to maybe trigger a Power Automate flow or change field types, field statuses. All of that can be done using PowerFX inside of a button. Another reason why Power Apps is important is their cross-platform data integrations. So Power Apps can really integrate with over 200 different data platforms. Some of the most common ones are Dynamics 365, SharePoint, Excel, Salesforce, Azure. A lot of people use these types of data platforms to build your Power Apps on top of. When you're building model-driven applications, it's a little bit different. So model-driven applications are meant to be built on top of Dataverse, where you're actually using the data platform within Power Apps to build on top of. You can also use your Dataverse tables for Canvas apps, but like I said earlier, Canvas apps can connect to many different data sources, whereas for model-driven, it's a little bit more difficult. One of the biggest reasons why I see organizations implementing Power Apps is really its low cost. It starts at $5 per plan for premium features, and that's per app per user, whereas it's $20 a month on a per user monthly basis for unlimited applications. And that's only for premium features. Power Apps is actually included in your standard Microsoft subscription. It's only when you want to do some more advanced functionality and integration where you have to purchase these additional licenses. Power Apps also has a decent amount of AI capabilities, all the way from business card readers to PDF readers to image classification. You can actually build these AI models within Power Apps and deploy them through the solutions and actually embed them within your Power Apps as well. So you can definitely integrate AI capabilities within Power Apps. One of the most common questions that we get at Collectiv is, what is the difference between Power Apps, Power BI, and Power Automate? What are they? What's the Power Platform? And here I will explain all of that to you. Power Apps, Power BI, and Power Automate make up what's called the Power Platform. So those tools together are the Power Platform. Today we're talking mostly about Power Apps, but we also wanted to mention how you can integrate Power Apps and Power BI. So like we said earlier, Power Apps is really meant to develop internal business applications to help you automate your business processes. Whereas Power BI is meant to be a data analytics tool. So give your end users, your consumers, the ability to review the data that may have been entered into Power Apps, but really do more extended analysis on top of that. So Power BI is not meant to gather data, whereas that's what Power Apps is specifically meant for. The integrations between the two are really, really powerful. So if you're building Canvas applications, you can actually embed those within Power BI. And then via Power BI, you can link to that data set via direct query. And as you make a change in your Power App inside of Power BI, you'll see your Power BI visualizations change at the same time. So now you're seeing those integrations and how fast you can get your data to you and modify your data. It's really, really powerful. Power BI also has the same exact data connectors as Power Apps does, so you can always build additional analysis on top of your Power Apps. You can also use Power BI data flows as data sources within Power App applications. So these integrations, that is why it's called the Power Platform. is because they integrate so well with each other. So here are a few use cases for Power Apps. So two that are my favorite are the employee feedback application and the help desk application. So to dig a little bit deeper, the employee feedback application is actually something that we use when we deploy solutions to our clients. Let's say we've just developed this Power App, we've deployed it to their end users. We need to gather feedback on that application so we can make changes and do your change management effectively. So we needed to provide a way to gather all of that information and store it so we can review it and prioritize. And that's really where our employee feedback application comes into play. So it's almost like you're building a Power App to review another Power App. The help desk application is super important because most companies now with the digitalization age, they have new IT systems, they have password requests. Well, we can build a help desk application within Power Apps that allow your users to go in, they're familiar with it because it kind of looks like other Microsoft applications. They log in using the same credentials, and it's really just meant to give you that one cohesive feel where people can go and contact IT for their requests. Inventory management is a huge one, especially with Dynamics 365. So just a few use cases, but those are my favorites. Now that we've switched over to the Power Apps home screen, I want to go through a few capabilities and navigation items once you're here. One of the most important concepts within Power Apps is your environments. Think of an environment as a capsule for all of your applications, your Dataverse entities, all of your connectors, all of that fits within your environment. You can have as many environments as you want within your organization. What I see a lot of people do is to build out their application lifecycle management system. So you'll have a dev environment, a test environment, and a production environment. So you'll actually create those. Once you've built out your environments, what I recommend you do is create solutions for all of your applications. So if you're building an application for a specific use case, you go build a solution and add all of the components for that application within that solution. And what that allows you to do is export that solution and then import it into another environment. So when you're thinking about your ALM lifecycle, you can start in dev. So this is where you're doing all of your development in that solution. Once you need your users to test that application, you export the solution outside of your dev environment and you import it back into your test environment. Once it's tested and you're ready to go to production, you then export it out of your test environment and move it to your production environment. And each time it actually is a different Dataverse instance. It's a different environment completely. So all of your data won't flow through when you do that import-export. And that's how you kind of keep your data integrity. You can also set up security differently per environment. So it's really powerful when you start creating and separating out your business logic into your different environments and solutions. Microsoft also has a really great learning platform. What I see a lot of people use is the guided learning. It's actually interactive courses, sort of like we're doing here, and helps you go through your basic business application development. It also gives you a bunch of new releases. So what are your new features within Power Apps that you want to try to implement within your application? You can get all of that through the Learn tab. If you want to see what applications you have access to, you can actually go to the Apps screen. And then here are all the applications I have access to. You can see the application name, when it was last modified, who created it, and then the type. So really important. Is it a model-driven or a Canvas application, like we reviewed earlier? If you're ready to start creating your applications, you can go to the Create tab. And one of the best features of Power Apps is that they actually have quite a few templates to start from. So if you're not sure how you want your application to look and feel, if this is your first Power App that you're building, you can actually start out from a template and just build on top of that. If you select one of the start froms, so most people are starting from Dataverse or SharePoint, that'll actually create a 3-screen app for you. So it's really powerful. And it's not going to have any fancy bells and whistles, but at least it'll be a starting point for you to start learning how to create your own Power App. A relatively new feature is your Azure Synapse link. So if you have an Azure Synapse instance, you can actually link it. So you can use your queries and tables from there inside of your application. Connections is really, really important to know. So this is where all of your connections for your applications will exist. It's really important because this is also where you enter your credentials to make sure that you have access to be able to get into that data platform. Like I mentioned, Power Apps has over 200 data connections. So if we click New Connection, you can scroll through and go find all of the connectors out of the box that you can use inside of your application. And the list is exhaustive. You can also build custom connectors. So if there is not a out-of-the-box connection to use inside of your application, let's say you have some custom application that you need to build on top of that exposes an API, well, you can build that custom connector inside of Power Apps and write back and gather that data via that custom connector. If you're building Power Automate flows inside of your environment, all of those that you build will actually exist in the Flows tab. So whether it be a cloud flow or a desktop flow, those will be saved here. The business process flow. So this is actually, I wouldn't necessarily say a new feature, but really important to learn, especially when you start building out your business processes. So let's say you're in a model-driven application and you have a sales team that needs to enter the deal. And then it goes to your contract team to create the contract. And then back to the sales team to maybe send an email to the prospective client. Well, that's what a business process flow does. So it goes in stages. So the first stage is your sales team, second stage is your contract team, third stage is back to your sales team. And that business process flow brings you through each stage and doesn't allow you to progress to the next stage unless it's met certain criteria. It's really important, really widely used feature. You can also build custom chatbots within Power Apps. So let's say you deployed a website and you want to create a sales chatbot. Well, you can go ahead and do that here as well. We also mentioned artificial intelligence within Power Apps earlier in our presentation. And so you can go to the AI Builder tool to build your own models. They actually have some out-of-the-box models that you can utilize inside of your Power Apps, like extract information from business cards. This is probably the most common one. Or extract information from invoices. So if you have PDF invoices that are being printed and you need to be able to capture those without manually typing it, well, you can train an AI model to pull that data off of it and store it inside of a Dataverse table. And with that, that brings us to the end of our Power App session. Thank you. So I know that we just went through Power Apps and how it can be really useful within your organization, but I also realize how complicated it can be for end users to develop, for your citizen developers to create, and that's really where Collectiv comes into play. We have a team of consultants who are experts in this type of technology to come help you on that journey. Thank you all for joining. I hope you enjoyed the session. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to our team on LinkedIn or visit us at gocollectiv.com.